Wait, I was still talking about the unmade Stuart Gordon's Dolls sequel. We could have had more magical killer dolls. More magical killer dolls. Oh. Well, seeing as I have you here, how about we talk about the, fog? Peculiar weather.
Be normal.
Yeah, weather.
Be normal.
Yeah. How are those sunny blue skies treating you? Any chances for more fog?
Be normal. Be normal.
Let's just hope this will keep out the fog. I'm just gonna cut to the chase and tell you, I recommend this movie. I'm always trying to sell you guys on seeing the stuff I talk about. I wouldn't dare waste your time talking about something that I don't recommend. But now, how the hell do I sell you on John Carpenter's 1980 movie, The Fog?
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unknown came out of the fog. Now it has returned. Oh, Jesus.
It's the same as asking, how do I sell you the idea of a certain atmosphere or ambiance? A ghost story wrapped in a foggy blanket. The fog isn't gory, it isn't particularly scary, and the effects aren't groundbreaking. All in all, it's quite the humble traditional tale, bordering right on the realms of Poe and Lovecraft. The Fog is a ghost story, and it perfectly encapsulates what I like about a good ghost story. Mood and atmosphere, an eerie dread, unstoppable forces, revenge, justice, ill omens, and ghosts too, I guess. Our story begins with an Edgar Allan Poe quote? 10. It's a 10. How can I score it any lower? My edgy little black heart cannot allow it. We begin with a ghostishly appropriate setting around a campfire.
One more story before 12, just to keep us warm.
Story to keep us warm? I don't think that's how heat works. Here we learn how 100 years ago, coincidentally, a ship, the Elizabeth Dane, lost in the fog, crashed on the rocks due to a campfire on the beach, resulting in the deaths of every sailor on board, leading to some potentially upset ghosts that dwell the fogs of Spivey Point in Antonio Bay, looking for vengeance on whose campfire caused their doom. Soon we are introduced to Father Malone, played by Hal Holbrook, along with a cameo from John Carpenter.
Father, can I get paid?
Who, just at midnight as the town turns 100 years old, discovers a mysterious diary belonging to his forefather, hidden away within the town's church walls, along with a cryptic message that reads, "Midnight till 1 belongs to the dead." Ooh, damn ominous. And let me just take a moment here to say, although behind the scenes Deborah Hill mentions Holbrook resembling Mark Twain.
And so I think Hal Holbrook is a brilliant character. He's Mark Twain. And I think to have Mark Twain have that evil side to him, that sort of negative side to him, for me, was very exciting.
I can't help but seeing a bit of Edgar Allan Poe in his facade. But then again, the eyes see what the eyes want. We see that all over town, just as the centennial rolls around, things start going screwy. From payphones going off, shelves shaking, fuel flowing, janitors being disgusting, alarms blaring, and who knows what else. Soon we are introduced to the local fisherman, Nick, played by Tom Atkins, and not a local hitchhiker, Elizabeth, played by Jamie Lee Curtis.
Sip.
Drinking and driving, plus hitchhiking alone at night. 1980 sure was a different time. Soon the two encounter the same spooky poltergeisty activity that the rest of the town is experiencing, which doesn't seem to bother the two too much. Next, we get to meet the soothing, sweet voice of local radio DJ Stevie.
So if you're so excited about it, you can't sleep. Well, stay up with me.
Played by Adrienne Barbeau, our literal and metaphorical lighthouse keeper of the story, who, after hearing from local weatherman Dan about some fog rolling in, does a radio call-out to a local fishing boat, the Seagrass, warning them of murky doom ahead.
To the men of the Seagrass, 15 miles out tonight, a warm hello, and keep a watch out for that fog bank heading in from the east.
Thus, the drunken fishermen decide to pack up and ship out, but not if the fog has something to say about it.
Hey, there's a fog bank out there.
Dun 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 dun.
Be normal. Tell them. You must tell them.
In all seriousness, it's a great scene, with the ghost soul in silhouette and obscured by the fog. Very traditionally spooky, and with some of the best stabbing sound effects you will ever hear. And that hard cut to the exterior shot of the boat sitting all forlorn in the water. Beautiful! Cinematographer Dean Cundy, editors Charles Barnstein and Tommy Lee Wallace. Take a round of apple sauce. Elsewhere, Elizabeth and Nick getting acquainted.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
What's your name?
Get a mysterious late-night caller, one who is standing in the fog. But just as 1 o'clock comes, the mysterious stranger vanishes. Next day, Stevie's son spots a gold coin on the beach, before it turns into magical driftwood that he's just rearing to show his mom.
First it was a gold coin, and then it turned into this neat piece of wood.
This is one of those times.
But look at it, Mom.
Oh yeah, and Andy here was the kid from the beginning of the movie.
Can I have a stomach pounder and a Coke?
Stomach pounder? The is a stomach pounder? And where can I get one? Back to Nick and Elizabeth, we learn that Nick is concerned over the seagrass fishing boat and sets off to investigate.
I'm going to talk Ashcroft into taking out his boat and looking for the seagrass.
Can I come along?
Yeah, sure, tag along. Meanwhile, in local events, the celebration of Antonio Bay's centennial is gearing up, thanks to the party planner chairperson Kathy.
Just be civil to me for another 5 hours, that's all I ask.
Played by Janet Leigh, who is in a tizzy over all the preparations.
And we will pass out the candles and begin the procession. Then I will go home and pass out.
And also how everything just kinda went weird last night at midnight.
My dog started to bark at 12 last night and didn't stop until 6 this morning.
I heard the church bells at midnight as I started to drift off to sleep, and suddenly my car alarm went off for absolutely no reason.
Mysterious, very mysterious. Back to Nick and Elizabeth again, who reach the abandoned boat, start looking for the missing sailors. And with all the weirdness that is going on here, at least these two seem they can put 2 and 2 together.
The glass is shattered.
Roger, something?
Last night.
Oh, your truck.
Yeah.
At the same time, but elsewhere, Janet and her assistant Sandy learn of the hidden past of their town's birth and the fabled ship that sank there.
He has purchased a clipper ship called the Elizabeth Dane. I must balance my feelings of mercy and compassion toward this poor man with my revulsion at the thought of a leper colony only a mile distant. I tell myself that Blake's gold will allow the church to be built and our small settlement to become a township, but it does not soothe the horror that I feel being an accomplice to murder.
I'm really disappointed in you town elders. Shame! Shame, shame, shame! Killing and robbing those poor lepers. You, on second thought, Meanwhile, Elizabeth desperately attempts to become the main character for a moment.
Ever since you picked me up, things have been going well. The clock broke, the windows have been breaking, the weirdo at the door last night.
That isn't you.
Not so sure.
Followed by Nick telling us a ghost story inside of a ghost story that reminds him of this situation.
And then something caught my father's eye. It was a gold doubloon.
And that turns out to be just distracting enough to lead to a well-executed jump scare.
I think I'll go to Vancouver now.
Back at DJ Stevie with her lighthouse radio station that she brought her son's driftwood to for some reason. Well, she gets a startling message from beyond the grave.
Something that one lives with like an albatross around the neck. No more like a millstone. A plumbing stone, by God. Damn them all.
Still way better than the messages I get from the dead. Speaking of...
The normal. The message is dire. Tell them.
We hear that according to the coroner, the corpse Nick and Elizabeth brought back from the seagrass is a tad fishy.
He was below decks.
Dick Baxter died in the ocean.
Giving said corpse a second opportunity to scare Elizabeth, who leaves behind a cryptic number 3. Also, Coroner Dr. Phibes, aren't you going to ask what the hell happened? Bodies don't just wander off and scroll numbers every day, do they? Do they? Later, Weatherman Dan warns Stevie of the fog rolling into town, starting from the weather station.
Should be here at the weather station in 5-10 minutes.
Where Dan quickly, ignoring Stevie's warnings,
Hold on, sweetheart. I want to check this out.
gets turned into victim number 4.
Some asshole got drunk and started taking this 100-year-old business too seriously.
And soon the fog starts taking out phone lines and power to the town, trapping the residents in darkness. This soon leads to the demise of Andy's sweet babysitter, Mrs. Corbett, who gets dragged off into the fog. Also, now the ghosts are coming after Andy, who thankfully gets rescued by Nick because of Stevie's radio broadcast.
Someone get to 887 White Beach Lane!
Stevie is of course now serving as a metaphorical lighthouse, directing people to safety, away from the fog and towards the church.
The fog is moving inland.
It's moving faster now. Up Regent Avenue, up to the end of Small House Road. Up to the church. If you can get out of town, get to the old church.
Also, where is everybody else in this town? But it isn't long before her lighthouse and the church both get engulfed by the ominous vapors. With vengeful leper spirits on their tails, Stevie escapes to the roof of the lighthouse, while Father Malone lays his hands on the gold the townsfolk stole from the sailors those 100 years ago.
Blake, I have your gold!
And in some of the most gothically spooky shots of the movie, a confrontation between living and dead occurs, with Father Malone sacrificing himself and the gold, whilst Stevie gets assaulted by spirits. And in a bright flash of light, the gold and the ghosts seem to vanish from Antonio Bay. And as a side note, you know how John Carpenter had 1951's The Thing from Another World on in the background of Halloween? Well, here they had a bit of a homage to that in Stevie's radio sign-off.
To the ships at sea who can hear my voice, look across the water into the darkness. Look for the fog.
Every one of you listening to my voice, tell the world. Tell this to everybody wherever they are. Watch the skies, everywhere.
As we finish with Father Malone contemplating the whole experience.
Why not 6, Blake? Why not me?
Oh, you thought you were going to get spared. As we cut to black with Malone's demise. The Fog was made early in director John Carpenter's career, which he also co-wrote with then-partner and producer Deborah Hill, who has had a hand in many of Carpenter's works and his related pieces. Carpenter also, like he so often does, composed the score himself, which is pretty damn banging if I do say so myself. As for the crew behind this, the many hands that worked on The Fog are quite known to our little channel, starting with Tommy Lee Wallace's work on 1990's It and 1982's Halloween 3. Ooh, speaking of Halloween 3...
Stop it, please, for God's sake, please stop it. There's no more time.
Tom Atkins would later appear in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, the then new incarnation of Carpenter's Halloween franchise, which failed, unfortunately.
I also had a couple of stinker sequels on my list, including Halloween 3, a boring, slow-paced thriller about a plan to fry the brains of the nation's youth.
Where Tom again would smooch with his co-star.
Yes, I'm smooth.
And heck, you could even say Jamie Lee Curtis was there too.
It's 6 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock.
Speaking of Jamie Lee Curtis, Janet Leigh, Jamie Lee's mother, plays her part very well. She really sells the soldiering on in spite of grief motif.
It's funny, but all I can think about is my silly dog barking all night and me just wishing Al would come home.
Plus, she's super famous for that other movie where she starred opposite Frank Sinatra, The Manchurian Candidate. Oh, and a little movie called Psycho. Special effects were done by Dean Cundy and Rob Bottin.
So I went in and I met John, and he was shooting The Fog. You know, I said, you know what, do you have any creepy kind of characters that, you know, are in this movie? I said, I'd love to play it. You know, you got anything like the guy with a mask in Halloween or whatever? He says, as a matter of fact, I do.
That being said, I think that Rob's work is mostly seen with the one ghost that we briefly see called Wormface. Rob is probably best known for his work on 1982's John Carpenter's The Thing.
You know, and he says, I want you to make The Thing. Right, and I went, oh my God.
Man, I love 1982's John Carpenter's The Thing. But Rob does get to play the lead ghost Blake, so that's pretty cool. On the topic of ghosts, they are really good. I like them. So don't be confused when I say I kinda wish we see them less, or rather, not as clearly. For years and years, watching bad VHS quality versions of this movie on old CRT televisions, I always thought the ghosts were always silhouetted in their scenes, except for that little bit of Wormface. But now, with higher quality, there are scenes where you can actually see them, and I really like their look. I mean, just come on!
If it's extremely close, detail shot in the movie, it was probably shot late in the game. If it's like a...
And I know it's not new news, but talk about illusion shattering. I kinda prefer the mystery of them being nigh impossible to identify.
Again, it goes to Lovecraft. There's some force that's coming to get us.
John and I are always sort of big fans of things that what you don't see is actually scarier than what you do see. But the idea was that the audiences were getting, they wanted to see more guts. They wanted to see more gore.
On that note, the story absolutely smacks of poism as well, which, let me remind you, I love with every fiber of my being.
Edgar Allan Poe is certainly a classic example of taking the unknown and creating the sense of terror and unsettling feeling around it.
But that is kinda exactly what Deborah Hill was aiming for, and what I feel she and Carpenter succeeded at. Tortured characters, long and forgotten curses, and pursuing doom.
Be normal. I am coming for you. What was that you said about torture, curses, and doom?
Ghost of Vincent Price? Was that you scaring me with foggy magic this whole time?
Well, I had to get your attention somehow. You haven't been home in ages. No one has fed zombie George Romero for months.
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about him. Anyway, why are you here, Ghost of Vincent Price?
I have come with a message, a communication from the dead, a memo of absolute evil.
Yes? What is it?
Like, comment, and subscribe. Oh!